Hi, this is Kevin from Pixavert.com. Now, I've heard that some of you guys need to extract hair from backgrounds that are not completely white and smooth. What a strange idea. What we're going to be doing in this video is looking at how to extract hair from uneven backgrounds. So I've done quite a few tutorials on hair extraction and selections generally. If you're new to Photoshop, you might want to have a look at some of those. We're not going to be covering the entire process in this video. We're just going to be looking at how to get started, how to get a decent starting point for your hair selection. So we're working with this image. Now, one thing I want to say is that in Photoshop, selections can be represented as layer masks or as channels. So we're going to be working in the channels, and this is a pretty large image. I would recommend working with an image which is larger than the final size that you need, because any imperfections in the selection will then be reduced when you reduce the final size of the image. So we're going to go to the channels. Just ignore these channels that I created earlier. I've got two. I'm going to keep those two there. But we need to focus on the red, green, and the blue. What you need to do is to identify the two channels with the maximum amount of contrast. With this picture, as you can see, it is the red channel and the green channel. Okay, I'm just kidding. It's the red and the blue channel. I was just checking to see if you're paying attention. So the red and the blue channel are the ones that we're going to use. We go to image, choose calculations, and what we want to end up with is something that looks like this. This is going to be the basis for our mask. This is done using a blending mode of 13 and a blending mode of add, offset of 13 and a scale of 1. We're going to output to a new channel, and we're going to work with the new channel. But I want to have a look at the other options here. And if you're wondering how I got to this point here, literally trial and error, just experimentation. We start off with something that's going to look a little bit like this. You've got source, you've got your source 2, you've got blending, and you've got your results. The blending is something that you'll be very familiar with. It's the same as in Photoshop, as in other parts of Photoshop. You got the different blending modes. You can try those out, and let's stick with multiply. If I hit invert with multiply and change the second channel to blue, you see we get a dark hair and a bright background, relatively brighter background. This could be the basis for a mask. We're masking out the hair, keeping out the background. We just need to invert that, and that could be the basis for our hair selection. Let's start from scratch. Source 1 is going to be your document. Source 2 is going to be your document. Layer, I've got a layer called work in progress. That's the top layer. That's one we're going to work on, and the channel is going to be the two channels that you found had most amount of contrast. So here we've got red, here we've got blue, and what we then do is that we mess around with the invert, the blending options. And the cool thing about the add and subtract blending motions is that you get these two extra options here. So you're going to mess around with invert here, and if you get something that looks like this, where you've got a foreground that is pretty dark and a background which is fairly light, this is something that you can then begin to work on. As I said earlier, this is the best that I got, and we're just going to very quickly go through the process. So we start off with multiply. Multiply is no good. We invert the multiply. We find that that looks pretty cool. Let's experiment with add and subtract. Add will normally start off with an offset of, say, around 0 and scale at 1. We've got a bit of darkness in the background. We've got a fairly dark foreground. The background is by and large fairly light, so we could try to take advantage just by checking to see if we can get the background to be a bit more light. And there we are. We've got a selected background, unselected foreground. All we need to do is to invert the selection, and we've got the mask that we need for our hair. So we're focusing only on the hair. The rest of the image can be selected using the pen tool, any number of options there. it's the hair that really gives us problems. So for this particular image, you could try going down to -255 or up to +255. You can mess around also with scale from 1 to 2, and that's your experimentation area. The scale, the offset, add and subtract, and invert. And with this particular image, you could literally use subtract, invert, scale of about 2, and an offset of around 0. That could actually produce a pretty decent outcome. We might take the offset down to about -11, and that'll give us a very dark background. Selected foreground, and we're focusing on the hair. So we could actually go ahead with this. I'm going to change this to -12, and we'll output to a new channel, hit OK. So the basic principle is experiment, just invert, subtract, add, mess around with the offset and scale and see what happens. When it works, it's brilliant. Control L brings up the levels, Control or Command L on the Mac. See there, we've got a pretty decent looking selection of the hair already. We can hit OK, and again, you're just going to experiment to see what works. Before I do that, I'm just going to make a note of this. This has gone up to 67. Let's make a duplicate copy because we're working destructively here. Control L, 67, and we've got the basis for our selection. We can just come here, Control click, create a layer mask, and there we have our layer mask. Let me switch this guy off. The weird thing about this technique is that you do need to refine the mask quite often. More often than not, you need to refine the mask using a wide range of techniques. So for instance here, I would probably need to paint in with a brush like that. Maybe bring up the levels again and brighten those parts of the image that are already bright. You can see we've got a reasonable selection as far as the hair is concerned. We do need to do a lot of work, and you need to use whatever skills you have in improving your layer mask. The big gun to use of course is mask edge. There you can take the radius up, maybe take the shift edge in a little bit. But obviously you're going to do this after you've really taken care of the inside of the selection by painting in there. And you can see how we can go from there to a much better selection than this. But calculations have done 50% of the work for us. We can now do the rest using whatever other skills we have in improving selections. So I hope you found that useful. It's a useful starting point. It's never an end point, and you can get much better results if you spend a bit of time with this. Maybe a bit of brush work, a bit of experimentation with the values. There is a more scientific way of actually using calculations, but I think the best thing to do is just to get started using it, and soon enough you'll have results where you couldn't get results with other easier methods. So I hope you found that useful. I hope you do find genuine use for this particular technique when you're at a loss. And yeah, if you like the video, please leave a comment, rate the video, subscribe for new videos, and yeah, thanks for watching. Till next time, take care, bye.